In Episode 20, Leading Stakeholder Risk Activities, we focus on the human side of risk management, the art of guiding people through structured conversations about uncertainty. Risk becomes real only when stakeholders engage, contribute, and own it collectively. A skilled PMI-RMP professional turns these interactions into productive discovery sessions rather than tense negotiations. Effective facilitation transforms abstract exposure into shared understanding and coordinated action. In this episode, we unpack how to prepare, lead, and sustain stakeholder participation so that risk management becomes a conversation everyone values, not an obligation they tolerate. The first step is mapping who matters. Stakeholders include anyone who can influence outcomes or is affected by them, from executives and sponsors to customers, vendors, and regulators. Influence maps visualize relationships: who shapes policy, who controls resources, who delivers work, and who feels impact. Understanding influence helps balance voice and visibility in workshops. Neglecting key players can distort perception, while over-including creates noise. The PMI-RMP professional tailors invitations based on scope and objectives, ensuring representation reflects reality. Effective stakeholder mapping prevents blind spots and supports both transparency and accountability. Before any session, shared goals must be established. Participants need clarity about purpose, whether they are identifying new risks, reviewing existing ones, or deciding on responses. Goals transform meetings from open discussion into focused collaboration. Stating them up front builds alignment. Our goal today is to confirm top 5 uncertainties that could affect schedule and quality. Shared intent reduces defensive behavior, giving participants permission to explore without fear of criticism. The professional links these goals back to project objectives, demonstrating that risk discussion supports, not disrupts, progress. When everyone understands the why, engagement becomes easier. Choosing formats that match audience needs determines whether a session energizes or drains participants. Technical teams may prefer structured analysis workshops with scoring tools. Executives may engage better through short scenario briefings or decision simulations. For distributed teams, virtual whiteboards or collaborative platforms can mirror in-person brainstorming. The facilitator's adaptability matters more than any template. Matching format to audience respects time, context, and cognitive style. It ensures discussions flow naturally rather than feeling imposed. Risk activities succeed when structure supports conversation instead of constraining it. Preparation transforms spontaneity into insight. The facilitator crafts prompts and scenarios that provoke meaningful thought rather than generic responses. Good prompts ask, "What assumptions must stay true for success?" Or, "What could make this timeline impossible?" Provocative scenarios reveal hidden dependencies and invite creative problem-solving. The PMI-RMP professional researches recent data, lessons learned, and emerging trends to seed conversation with relevance. Preparation signals respect and credibility. Stakeholders engage more deeply when they sense intention behind every question. Thoughtful preparation prevents sessions from becoming repetitive or superficial. Capturing causes, effects, and uncertainties turns raw conversation into structured insight. Stakeholders often describe symptoms. "We might run late," but the facilitator probes deeper. What causes that risk, and what would its impact be? Documenting cause and effect clarifies chain reactions and helps later analysis. The professional ensures risks are described as events, not vague worries. If vendor delivery slips by 2 weeks, then milestone 4 misses testing window. This precision transforms concern into data. Structured capture during workshops ensures completeness, linking risks to tangible consequences for prioritization and ownership. Translating stakeholder language into clear, standardized statements is the bridge between dialogue and documentation. Participants speak differently depending on discipline or seniority. The facilitator listens for meaning and rephrases using neutral, measurable language. For instance, "the system might blow up" becomes "unexpected failure in the integration test environment." Standardization prevents confusion and enables quantitative assessment later. The PMI-RMP professional shares these rewritten statements back to the group for confirmation, maintaining transparency and accuracy. Translation ensures that captured information remains actionable rather than anecdotal. Alignment on owners and next actions converts discussion into progress. Each risk identified must have a named owner accountable for monitoring and response design. Assigning ownership during the session itself prevents dilution of responsibility later. The professional confirms understanding. You'll track supplier readiness weekly and report deviations at next review, and documents commitments clearly. Ownership without clarity leads to gaps. Clarity without ownership leads to inertia. By pairing both, the facilitator ensures that engagement translates into follow-through rather than fading after the meeting ends. Conflict inevitably arises when interests diverge. Principled facilitation keeps discussion productive. The facilitator acknowledges emotions without letting them dominate, redirecting debate towards shared objectives. When disputes occur, grounding conversation in data, project goals, or documented assumptions restores focus. The PMI-RMP professional acts as neutral referee, reminding participants that conflict reveals value. It highlights areas where expectations or priorities misalign. Resolving these differences early prevents escalation later. Managing disagreement skillfully strengthens credibility, showing that risk work can handle tension without losing composure. Ensuring inclusion across locations, roles, and time zones sustains comprehensive visibility. Remote participants must have equal voice and access, whether through synchronized meetings, asynchronous inputs, or rotating facilitation times. Inclusion also spans function. Finance, engineering, procurement, and operations each perceive risk differently. The facilitator integrates these perspectives into a unified view. Diversity of input produces resilience of insight. A session that excludes certain voices may complete faster but misses depth. True inclusion slows the clock slightly to save time later through fewer surprises and stronger buy-in. Follow-through cements credibility. After each session, distribute concise notes capturing risks, decisions, owners, and due dates. Confirm with participants that records reflect their intent accurately. Publish updates in shared repositories, linking them to risk registers or dashboards. The professional tracks commitments, ensuring actions move from talk to traction. Follow-through also includes brief thank you messages or acknowledgement of contributions, reinforcing goodwill. When participants see their input reflected and acted upon, trust deepens and engagement grows stronger in future sessions. Measuring engagement quality provides insight into stakeholder health over time. Metrics might include attendance rates, response timeliness, quality of inputs, or satisfaction surveys. The professional uses these indicators to refine facilitation techniques, perhaps increasing frequency of short check-ins or adjusting format variety. Engagement measurement turns facilitation into a managed process, not an art form. Patterns reveal whether stakeholders feel valued or fatigued. Continuous improvement in engagement ensures the organization's risk culture matures alongside its processes. The stronger the dialogue, the faster uncertainty turns into informed decision-making. Relationships ultimately drive risk outcomes. Tools, registers, and frameworks only work when people communicate honestly and act collectively. Leading stakeholder activities is therefore an exercise in relationship management under structured pressure. The PMI-RMP professional balances empathy with rigor, transforming discussion into discipline without losing human connection. When engagement becomes habitual and trust consistent, risk management stops being an event, it becomes culture. In that environment, uncertainty loses its sting because relationships ensure that whatever happens, response will be coordinated, timely, and confident. Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit DailyCyber.News.